Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Explore Spiritism program on Kardec Radio. Our topic today is actually more of a question, and that is, what will your new normal be? This is, of course, referring to the situation that we are experiencing now with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're all talking about a return to normal, meaning when we no longer are staying home day after day after day to try to control the infection rate of the virus, to try not to overwhelm and essentially cripple our healthcare systems and their ability to treat patients, and to protect those most vulnerable among us. Well, we know that when we go back, it's not going to be the same. There are going to be changes. And so we're all talking about the new normal and what that's going to look like. Well, there will be changes at a societal level, right, for society at large, and there will be changes for each of us as individuals, depending on how we decide to go forward, considering what we have experienced all this time. And the idea to bring this topic today came from an article that I read. I want to share a little bit of it with you. I'm actually not going to read the whole article, but I do want to share some excerpts because I want to share some things in the author's own words. I'm going to actually share my screen here for a little bit. This is the article. It's on media.com, and it was called Prepare for the Ultimate Gaslighting. When I first saw this article, the title of it, shared on Facebook, I assumed that it was going to be political in nature, revolving around comments on finger pointing and blame games. But for some reason, I followed the link and I got started reading the article and realized that it wasn't what I expected. And I think that the author has some insightful points to make and things for us to reflect on. So the author is named Giulio Vincent Gambuto, and he published this on April 10th. For those unfamiliar with the term gaslighting, it's a term used in psychology, and the site dictionary.com refers to it as a form of psychological manipulation involving distorting the truth in order to confuse or instill doubt in another person to the point that they question their sanity or reality. And so in the subtitle to the article, Giulio writes, "You are not crazy, my friends." And after providing a brief definition of gaslighting, he writes, pretty soon, as the country begins to figure out how we, quote, open it back up and move forward, very powerful forces will try to convince us all to get back to normal. Billions of dollars, he says, will be spent on advertising, messaging, and television and media to make you feel more comfortable again. Of course, as he mentioned, this will be in the traditional forms of advertising, but he also says there will be new media forms. In other words, a 2021 generation of memes to remind you that what you want again is normalcy, right? He says we all feel so desperate to get back to normal, to our routines of life. He writes, the need for comfort will be real and it will be strong. And every brand in America will come to your rescue, dear consumer. So he says, be aware of what is coming. he points out that the advertising industry in general works on the principle of finding a consumer's problem and fixing it. Okay, so when he says the problem is tactical and practical, they offer a product to solve our problems. Many times very helpful to us, right? When the problem, he says, is emotional, they offer a new staple for us in our lives and get us to become a lifelong loyalist. Whether it's a new food product for us to get hooked on, a new car model, or some kind of, vacationing, they want us to feel, special and fill any voids that we might be experiencing, generating some emotional discord. Well, the desire and ability of companies and organizations to solve our problems is not inherently bad, but it can become dangerous. And he points this out or explains when he says, smart marketers know how to highlight what brands can do for you to make your life easier. But brilliant marketers know how to rewire your heart. We are, as a society, now vulnerable in a whole new way. And if you look at these comments that I've shared, with which he opens his article, you can already see how this could be dangerous if perhaps we've been spending these days at home and realizing that we don't always need to be out consuming, buying, spending. That, gosh, we like spending ways with loved ones in some simple ways, enjoying some time at home, doing things with what we have at our disposal, enjoying, maybe nature, getting outside, time connecting with those close to us. But he actually goes on to point out something else. And he actually writes, what the trauma has shown us cannot be unseen. So at first, right, this is, we see, for example, the impact of less pollution and non-consumerism in that way on the outdoor world around us. We see the positive effects of that, and as the flip side of that coin, we might be caused to think about the consequence of our actions and what we all do on a day-to-day basis, the impact that has on the environment. But what he really stresses is that we might not see just the good things happening. We are actually getting a spotlight on some of the problems that society has and that need to be fixed. And it's not that we don't know about these problems or that we really don't care to solve them, but he says, as Americans, and I know this pertains to people in other countries as well, it's not just here, but we're busy. He says we're out and about hustling to make our own lives work. And so it's very easy to close your eyes to a problem when you barely have enough time to close them to sleep. And now we're getting, as I said, a spotlight on these issues, whether it be the ability to protect our healthcare workers or the vulnerabilities of our society in economically tough and strenuous times. The ability of our children to get a school lunch or a lunch or meal when their schools are closed. Different things like this, but there are a lot of issues that this virus, aside from just healthcare, in the healthcare arena, that it's bringing to light. And he says, you know what? What has happened is inexplicably incredible. It's the greatest gift unwrapped. Not the deaths, not the virus, but the great pause. It is, in a word, profound. So he begs us, please don't recoil from the bright light beaming through the window. I know it hurts your eyes. It hurts mine too, but the curtain is wide open. What the crisis has given us is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to see ourselves and our country in the plainest of views. At no other time ever in our lives have we gotten the opportunity to see what would happen if the world simply stopped. Here it is, we're in it. He says that we can solve these problems, but we have to pay attention to how we feel right now. But again, he warns us that what is about to be unleashed on American society will be the greatest campaign created to get you to feel normal again. And he cautions that we will do anything, spend anything, believe anything, just so we can get away from this uncomfortable feeling that we have in witnessing all of this happening. Then he says, I beg of you to take a deep breath, ignore the deafening noise, and think about what you want to put back into your life. This is our chance to define a new version of normal, to bring back only what works for us. So we can solve those problems to get cleaner air, protect our healthcare workers. We can create the ability for our neighbors and friends to earn a dignified income, for our children to have lunch if their schools become closed, but only if we resist the drive and the push to take us in other directions. He says, that is on its way, so look out. And most in particular, his words when he said that we have a chance to define a new version of normal, to bring back what works for us. That was what inspired me to actually bring this topic today. Because including, but beyond just those things that he mentioned, things that are in our control, maybe not even immediately, but that we can start doing our part to take action on. We need to really give that some thought. And it got me thinking, what else can we have as part of our new normal, right? So this is like the serenity prayer that says, you know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know this difference. So I will ask you, how has this situation made you think about how you'd like to live a little differently? Maybe during this time, for example, you've started to think about how you can take better control of your health, of your immune system, so you can be better protected when facing this kind of threat to your health, right? Anything from, you know, your diet to your exercise and other habits, to even the new habits that we've adopted from, you know, hand washing and how to be careful when situations like this arise. Another thing that we might be giving more thought about these days is relationships. Suddenly we're realizing how important those relationships are in our lives, and not just our very closest friends, our family, those we hold most dear, but in general, our connection to one another, the people that we see in our day-to-day lives, and we take those connections for granted. Maybe we're thinking now about how much we miss all of those people. And something else came to mind that I have seen recently. And if you didn't see it posted on Explore Spiritism, for example, I'm going to show it to you now. It's a video on YouTube. It's a song, and it's entitled See You Soon. It was posted by a person named Joe Brandmeier. And he explains in the description to the video that it was inspired by a message written actually by Pope Francis. His brother wrote song lyrics inspired by that message. And he was so moved by the song, the person who posted this video, that he gathered photos from around the world and aligned them with that song by his brother to create this video. And it's truly beautiful. I highly encourage you to watch it. But the message of this video is, at the end of the day, when we close our eyes at night and think about when we go back and get to do those things that are part of our routine, and especially to see each other again, what will that be like? And it reminds us that those things that are so simple yet truly the most essential, they're going to feel like an unexpected gift. And how happy we are going to be to again engage in those relationships. So please check out that video. It's a beautiful song that has a beautiful message. Along those lines is the feeling of gratitude. A lot of us have been expressing gratitude lately for all kinds of people in our community and how they are helping us to obtain the products and services that we most need, or how we are missing some of the products and services that we are accustomed to, right? And we begin to appreciate more the people in our community and how they serve us. So we are expressing that, and perhaps as we go forward, we might want to let those people know how much we appreciate them. We might even want to figure out how we can take actions What I want to bring in now is a Spiritist book called Thought and Life. It's by the Spirit author Emmanuel through the medium Chico Xavier. And yes, I'm aware that that appeared to you backwards. So I want to actually share an image of this book with you. Again, it's called Thought and Life by Emmanuel. And there's a chapter, number 20, in this book that's called Habit. And I actually want to read to you some excerpts from this chapter. Emmanuel begins it by writing about our habits, saying, habit is the accumulation of mental reflexes whose function is to induce routine. We inherit thousands of years of repeated experiences, each one similar to the other. Up to now, we have been like a boat carried away by the river of habits to which we've offered no resistance. Right? So this is over the course of many, many incarnations through the process of reincarnation. He says, with few exceptions, we have become consumers of other people's thoughts by an automatic reflex action of the mind. Consequently, we exaggerate our needs and refuse to adopt simpler standards of living, which could make our lives easier. We then become defensive regarding our demands and cruel towards our neighbor. This also causes us to create a complex mechanism of caution and distrust that reaches beyond the need of self-preservation. Century after century, he says, we return to tread the same road from where we expect to go forward. And I'm going to bring back the bigger screen here now, but continue to share with you a little bit, because Emmanuel goes on to say that evolution demands that we develop new habits, that we detach ourselves from lower forms and walk towards higher stages of existence. So major events like this, like calamities, like the COVID-19 pandemic, they propel us in kind of bigger leaps of progress to the degree that we wish to reflect on them and to make the necessary changes. Emmanuel points out that in any of these situations, we have a great example in the lessons that Jesus left for us by the way he lived his own life. Emmanuel says, we see in Christ a divine landmark of human renewal, a whole program of basic spiritual transformations without violence of any form. He altered the moral standards by which the earth had lived for several thousand years. He offered the practice of forgiveness to replace systematic condemnation and to replace the usual racism. He offered the concept of genuine brotherhood. To uplift sadness and discouragement, he gave us the Beatitudes as a comfort to the afflicted who know how to wait, and to the righteous who know how to suffer. Emmanuel says Jesus' apostleship becomes a resplendent set of reflexes aimed at the redemption of the human way. He taught the virtue of simplicity when he began his pilgrimage amongst humanity that originated in the manger. His death on the cross taught us serenity, patience, and belief in the resurrection and eternal life. Even now, Emmanuel writes, justice in the world spells revenge, and love is tainted with selfishness. So we're still dealing with these struggles. But he says this is due to our unreasonable attitudes during all the millennia that has preceded today. However, we cannot ignore the fact that only kindness and understanding reflect true happiness, as it is then that we nurture real goodness. We have the obligation to educate ourselves and to serve, creating these everyday habits by cooperating in the safety and happiness of all beings, even at the cost of our own sacrifice. So again, here Emmanuel encourages us to look at our habits. And I am encouraging all of us, myself included, to think about our new normal and what kinds of habits we want to carry forward as what we have reflected on and learned from our experience over the past weeks with all that has gone on, what we've seen, and what we have already begun doing differently or what we want to do differently as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic. And as we do that, then let's stop and let's ask God to help us accept the things that we cannot, to have the courage to change what we can, and of course, to know the difference in that, and to be able to discern right from wrong and think for ourselves with all the messages that are going to come at us, all the offerings for getting back to normal, and decide what we agree with, what we don't, what we want to be part of our lives. So that's the message for today, the food for thought that I leave with you. I thank you again very much for watching. Thank you. Have a great couple of weeks until I'm with you again, and God bless.